The health ministry in Gaza says at least 35 people have been killed and dozens more injured in an Israeli airstrike on Rafah. The Hamas-run ministry says the strike hit an area where thousands of displaced civilians are sheltering. Israel confirmed its military did carry out an attack on Rafah and says the strike killed 2 Hamas commanders. It also said it was investigating reports that civilians were harmed as a result. The strike came just days after the International Court of Justice in The Hague ordered Israel to stop its assault on Rafah.
Homes of displaced Gazans burned to the ground after an Israeli airstrike in the southern city of Rafah. Israel's army maintains it was targeting a Hamas compound and used precise weapons against legitimate targets. However, Israel says it is reviewing the incident. Hamas has called it a heinous massacre.
We were safely sitting at the door of the house. Suddenly we heard the sound of a missile. We ran and found the street covered in smoke. We couldn't see anything. When we checked over the wall, we found a girl and a young man who had been cut into pieces.
Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry said dozens are dead. The International Red Cross also confirmed that hospitals were seeing an influx of wounded people. Earlier on Sunday, air raid sirens rang out in Tel Aviv, sending people running down into bomb shelters until the danger passed. The salvo of rockets fired from Gaza left debris outside of a school.
Today, Hamas terrorists in Gaza fired 8 rockets at central Israel from Rafah, sending millions of Israelis to bomb shelters. Hamas launched these rockets from near 2 mosques in Rafah. Hamas has been attacking Israel from Rafah, and Hamas has been holding our hostages in Rafah.
A Hamas spokesperson said the barrage was a response to high civilian deaths at the hands of the Israeli military.
I asked Marina Miron, who's a military expert at King's College London, to give us her assessment of Israel's strike in Rafah.
Good day, Anya. Well, the situation is very difficult. So from an Israeli point of view, there was a military necessity to conduct that strike. Now, the problem is that military necessity is not the only consideration that should be made. Proportionality, for one, is another very important aspect in the international law of war, is that proportionate the damage that that strike would create. And I think this is a crucial question here. Could Israel have used other means, for instance, using ground troop snipers perhaps, in order to eliminate those 2 commanders of Hamas without damaging the civilians? And Israel has been repeatedly criticized for these indiscriminate attacks. And I think that this is, of course, playing into the hands of Hamas and now displaying what atrocities Israel is committing in Gaza.
Yesterday, Hamas fired several rockets at Tel Aviv in Israel. Tell us what this tells us about Hamas's military capacity.
Well, there have been some reports about Hamas's military capabilities, and throughout this war, from October 7th onwards, both sides have been fighting an information war, and both sides were trying to portray themselves in a specific light. According to some reports, at least 1/3 of Hamas fighters has been eliminated by the IDF, but as we see, Hamas still has capabilities, and I think the strike they have conducted after so many months of war is also symbolic to show to Israel that Hamas is not being close to being defeated. And I believe Hamas might not have any more of advanced weapons because of the difficulties of importing spare parts, but I do think that they still retain some long-range rockets, and therefore I assume that we will be seeing more of these strikes in the coming weeks as the operation unfolds in Rafah.
And what about the Hamas infrastructure? I mean, does the network of tunnels in Gaza, for example, still play an important role in this war?
I think it absolutely is, because the issue with the tunnels has never been completely resolved by the IDF. Some tunnels have been discovered and have been taken under control, or at least out of operation. However, it is estimated that some 50% of tunnels are still functioning, and this is a way that Hamas still can move underground. What we're seeing now is that it's trying to regroup and recover in the north, for instance, a territory believed to have been under control by the IDF. So they will continue using this tunnel infrastructure, which is giving them a certain leverage over the IDF.
OK. Now, Israel says that Hamas's last remaining battalions are in Rafah, but there have been reports that Hamas is regrouping in the north. Is Israel getting any closer to achieving its military goal of eliminating Hamas?
Correct. So what we have to understand here is that the size of Hamas is very flexible, so the size of this grouping. And this leads us to the first question about the incident at that refugee camp. Because for every single terrorist killed, there will be another 10 perhaps willing to join the organization. And I'm talking in theoretical terms. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So it's all a matter of perspective. And from the Palestinian perspective, from the perspective of the Gazans, whose family members get killed by Israeli forces, even if they were not on the side of Hamas before October 7, now they are seeing this destruction and wreaking havoc, starvation in Gaza. They will be much more inclined to join Hamas, to join their ranks, because they share that ideology. So in other words, you can destroy Hamas militarily, probably. That is possible, but you cannot destroy them ideologically. And indiscriminate and disproportionate attacks, which risk severe civilian casualties, even if it's considered as a collateral damage, risk perpetuating the cycle of violence, creating even more fighters. So I think we're not getting any closer. A political solution, it should be thought about, because militarily you cannot resolve this conflict.
Marina Miron, military expert from King's College London. Marina, thank you so much as ever.